Hi, this is RX-78GP02A. This time I'm going to explain the Gundam GP02A Physalis. Gundam GP02A Physalis, model number RX-78GP02A, is a tactical nuclear strike mobile suit. With the advance of militarization of Minovsky particles and the Antarctic Treaty signed with Zeon, nuclear missiles become unusable in both practical and political sense for the Federation force. However, with the end of 1-year war and Zeon returning under the Federation force wanted to prepare for the next conflict where the Antarctic Treaty may not apply, and they needed to resolve the practical problems when trying to deliver a nuclear strike in environments full of Minovsky particle interferences. Having said that, with budget cuts coming from all directions, it would be a self-political mutilation to suggest that publicly. Thus, the Federation force looked into ongoing projects with potential solutions and having a good cover-up to pour funds in. Gundam GP02 from the Gundam development project with Anaheim was a perfect starting point. Since Anaheim could avoid direct supervision from the House or Chamber, and Anaheim was and still is in very good terms with Federation force, better yet, they rebrand the Nuclear Strike Solution Project as Gundam Development Project. And if the project was discovered by any opposition, they could deny involvement and slap Anaheim on the wrist, or better yet, annexation. Gundam GP02A started its development life as Gundam GP02, a heavy armor assault mobile suit, while GP01, the direct successor to the original RX-78, would have a set of full armor to fill a similar role. The GP02 team suggests there is an alternative approach, something akin to MS-09 Dome from Zeon. Anaheim had recruited a lot of former Zeon personnel to grow their mobile suit development and manufacturing business. So when the Gundam development project started, they quickly point out that there were no dome-like mobile suits in the Federation arsenal during the 1-year war. Indeed, the Federation had logistical superiority and could quickly repurpose or modify existing military hardware to carry mobile suits around as support flight systems, and they did not pursue mobile suits capable of long-range operation or fast tactical movement on their own. There were a few exceptions, but did not see why adaptation or continued development as at that point in time. Having said that, it was pretty clear that the Federation had a very different idea what Dome actually does or used for, because the Federation envisioned GP02 to rush in to lay waste at the intended area before pulling out, surviving the process with thick armor. The GP02 team, on the other hand, was focused on combining the best attributes of Gundam and Dome to create a new mobile suit like no other. Being approved second has some benefits. The flexible frame had proven to be solid and had room for GP02 to be built larger like Dome, and the GP02 team can use all the fire control, power transmission, and propulsion parts adopted by GP01. The GP02 team decided to follow the late RX-78 variant's design to use a spherical cockpit for more internal volume in order to fit a larger generator and cooling system, and combine that with Dome's legs design and hovering nuclear thermal rocket jets in the feet, as well as thick aerodynamic armor. The development team wanted GP02 to be effective in space too, and instead of extensive refitting needed for Red Dome, they decided to install these flexible binders on GP02's shoulders to work as airbag limbs and booster packs. This leaves GP02's back free for installing any heavy weapon backpack like the cannon packs or large weapon rack used by both Federation or Zeong in the One-Year War. This was where the Federation Force stepped in and told the GP02 team that they would pivot that project into development of a tactical nuclear strike mobile suit. Several methods to deliver the nuclear strike were discussed, and eventually it was decided that GP02 would deliver the nuclear warhead with a bazooka like an old-century man-portable nuclear weapon. There were more complications. GP02 would need to be able to confirm the detonation as well as the aftermath, since long-range observation hardware would be clouded by the radiation created by the nuclear explosion and Minovsky interferences. The nuclear warhead would need to be stable enough that even if GP02 was shot down, or worse, sunk with its mothership, they would not discharge accidentally. And with warheads that stable, GP02 would need a good method to arm them. The GP02 team tried, and would find out very soon, delivered the Gundam GP02A, A standing for atomic. Let's take a closer look and see what makes GP02A atomic, starting from the head. GP02A's head is based on the GP01. Despite how different it looks, most of the internals of GP02A's head are the same as GP01's, which you can still see externally by looking at the Vulcans, being a separate module going around the head. The external design of GP02A's head was made for better aerodynamics. As GP02A has gone atomic, it was modified and filled with insulation and circulation systems against the EMP, heat, shock, and radiation generated by nuclear explosion. GP02A's torso, like we have mentioned, is based on the late RX-78 variants, with a spherical cockpit module doubled as an escape pod. But instead of using full dome monitor and linear seat, the development team decided to use a basic monitor and pilot seat setup, saving the rest of the internal space to be filled with insulation instead, to absorb the heat, shock, and radiation from the nuclear explosion. A small I-fuel generator is also fitted near the cockpit to disperse the EMP and radiation, although it is not strong enough to provide protection against beam weaponry. The cockpit hatch is also modified to be thicker for inserting additional insulation and in spherical shape to spread out the shock. Some sources suggest that GP02A even gave up the optical computer with machine learning AI, but as we would discuss later, the GP02A has a lot of subsystems for launching and surviving nuclear strikes, so it is very unlikely. The rest of GP02A's torso is also fitted with insulation and circulation system to withstand the EMP, heat, shock, and radiation from nuclear explosion. And it does have quite a lot of space for that thanks to the combination of using late RX-78 and dome torso design. GP02A still has chest fans on both sides like proper RX-78, but modified again to survive nuclear blasts too close for comfort. GP02A skirts are longer than those on RX-78 and dome, but not out of place among Gundam ground type, as it was supposed to have a big role for ground operations. These skirts are filled with insulation and coolants against to survive nuclear explosion. The side skirt also doubled as beam saber holster for GP02A. This design may seem Zeong inspired, but Federation was the one putting ECAP recharging ports on the side skirts. GP02A have Gundam-looking thighs but clearly dome-like lower legs and feet. While the plan was to fit nuclear thermal rocket jets in GP02A's legs for hovering, in order to save space for insulation and cooling system to survive nuclear explosion, it was replaced with simpler nuclear thermal rockets. This means GP02A would have a much more limited operation range, but it also means GP02A can return with its legs intact. A lot of the basic components and designs are the same as GP01, like the design of the knees where you can see the observation and recording devices, although the whole setup is larger for the larger GP02A. The thermal rockets are installed inside GP02A's ankle joint much like GP01, but they are larger and have 2 thrusters each. Moving to GP02A's arms, the arms themselves are very much GP01 based but built larger like Dome did compared to the Zaku's. The internal volume is filled with insulation like the rest of its body. The main feature of GP02A's arms are, of course, the flexible thruster binders. The flexible thruster binders was conceptualized by the GP02A team to solve a common problem among Zeong mobile suits, namely how the legs have more mass and thrust, and are more important than arms fore and back, in turn limited the range of optimal maneuvers, making Zeong mobile suits moving in predictable patterns. With flexible thruster binders installed on GP02A's shoulders, however, it has a much better balanced distribution of mass thrust between arms and legs, giving GP02A a very wide range of optimal maneuvers, making its movement much harder to track. In addition, the flexible thruster binders are installed on a universal joint much like the universal boost port of GP01FB, allowing the flexible thruster binders to be separate and back limbs, giving GP02A more fine controls in flight. Each flexible thruster binder has enough thrust for regular mobile suits, and each one of the thermal rockets installed are movable to provide even more fine controls. Each of the flexible thruster binders also have a hidden thermal rocket deployed in binder open mode for even more thrust. Since the armor design had put that in consideration, GP02A is just if not more aerodynamic than it is in closed mode. As GP02A goes atomic, the flexible thruster binders also get their share of insulation and circulation system installed in order to survive nuclear explosion. GP02A's backpack is extremely simple. It is just a container unit with an autoloader and a mount for the atomic bazooka. The hatch on the back of the atomic bazooka would open then line up with the backpack, and the backpack would lower nuclear bazooka round into it. Now you do see arms sticking out of the backpack to support the flexible thruster binders. And this is a G-frame invention because its shoulder joints were not designed to support giant pieces like the flexible thruster binders. Although I would not be surprised to see more of them appear more often on future GP02A examples because they just works. GP02A's arsenal is rather simple. A pair of falcons on the head, a pair of beam sabers on the side skirts, a shield, and the atomic bazooka. The falcons, like we have mentioned, are from GP01 and insist by Federation's request. The beam sabers are based on those on GP01 but modified to fit in GP02A's side skirts. Together, they make up GP08's entire conventional arsenals and pretty much exist as self-defense. GP02's shield is an addition as it had got atomic. with the entire mobile suit and cockpit have been rebuilt to fit in layers of insulation and circulation system to survive nuclear explosions. Having GP02A taking the brunt of the impact would still be risky. So the development team put together this CCC thick shield to take the brunt of the impact in order to increase the GP02A's chance of survival. Like GP02A, this is made of lunar titanium and filled with insulation and circulation systems. The vents are there to exhaust vaporized coolant as the shield absorbs the heat and radiation from nuclear explosion, and hopefully a secondary effect to provide a screen for the rest of the Gundam. Some examples would have articulation for these sections on the shield for more coolant vents. GP02A shield also used as a carry case for the atomic bazooka's barrel, since it is rather important for the barrel to remain intact in order to arm the nuclear rocket. The atomic bazooka, like its name suggests, is a bazooka capable of launching nuclear bazooka rounds. It was originally developed as a universal bazooka capable of launching standard rounds like HE and HASH to highly specialized rounds like EMP and beam disruption smoke. This is achieved by having a barrel utilizing beam rifle barrel technology, keeping the round centered with a low-density eye field. When this universal bazooka was modified into the atomic bazooka, its capabilities were enhanced similar to that of a beam gun. It can generate and launch beam bolt, however that beam bolt is non-lethal, at least against other mobile suits. Rather, it is designed to be used to initiate the fusion reaction of the nuclear warhead, and use the eye field containing the beam bolt to enhance the intensity of the explosion. This arming and launching method allows the nuclear warhead to travel further than its solid-state rocket could have carried it, and keep the nuclear warheads totally safe unless they are being directly hit by other beam weapons. This is the reason why, despite being categorized as a tactical nuclear strike mobile suit, the GP02A had delivered a nuclear strike that is borderline if not flat out on strategic level. Sure, the nuclear warhead assigned to GP02A was only tactical level by pre-1-year war standard, but it was enhanced by the atomic bazooka and launched from a Gundam, the legendary mobile suit that turned the 1-year war around. GP02A was shipped to the Torrington base in Australia from Van Buren on the Moon by Albion along with GP01. While most of the crew of Albion did not know that GP02A was sent to acquire a nuclear warhead from Torrington intended to be test-fired in the Sydney crater, a few key personnel did. So when Dallas Fleet managed to steal GP02A loaded with a nuclear warhead, Albion immediately gave chase, but the Dallas Fleet had planned their escape route by going to Africa and launching GP02A into space. While it is possible that some devoted Zeon remnants had spied on the Gundam development project, it was more likely that having a large number of former Zeon military personnel working on a nuclear strike Gundam would lead to talks and rumors that eventually made their way to the Dallas Fleet. In fact, many former Zeon military personnel in Anaheim or Federation had turned a blind eye to the Dallas Fleet's operation for them to pull off the heist and subsequent nuclear strike. The Dallas Fleet made a broadcast asking the Federation to reinstate the Principality of Zeon, or they would punish the Federation for their violation of the Antarctic Treaty. The Federation, being the Federation, denied any of the Dallas Fleet's claims and proceeded to parade around Space Fortress Solomon with over half of their serving fleets in space. GP02A showed up with its massive thrust out of nowhere and delivered a nuclear strike that was too late to intercept when it was launched out of the atomic bazooka. Those who were close to the center of the nuclear strike were completely vaporized, while most of the fleet present were thrown into a storm of intense EMP heat, shock, and radiation. Save from the few ships standing guard far off the side, including Albion, were devastated by the attack. GP02A held up by using its shield and running its many subsystems. When it was satisfied with the result and decided to leave, Gundam GP01FB showed up and cut off its escape. With the shield holding hand jammed by the nuclear explosion and surprised by GP01FB's kamikaze attack style, GP02A was taken down. But the spherical cockpit saved the pilot's life. While the Gundam development project was shut down with relevant public records deleted shortly after the Solomon debacle, Alaham found the concept of combining attributes of Gundam and Dom promising, and they should do fine so long they stay away from nukes. This would eventually lead to the development of Gamma Gundam or Red Dias. The flexible thruster binders was developed into optional attachment by Anaheim, while Federation asked their arsenals to recreate similar design for their transformable mobile armor. The atomic bazooka itself was largely forgotten, but it did lead to development of beam-propelled firearms for mobile suits. They are not super popular, but they exist and some are capable of ridiculous feats. There are also variants planned by both Anaheim and Xeon Remnants. Some turn GP02A back to a conventional heavy armor assault mobile suit, others expand the use of the atomic bazooka. Until we got some examples, I will just leave those here. GP02A, like many Gundams, had changed the course of Universal Century. Its development and use are wrapped around by complex yet common human issues. Even though its existence was being covered from public for many years, it affected them all the same. Thanks for watching.